Hello guys, hello students. Welcome back to another lesson. And we have finished studying, reviewing, covering our lessons for present, which include present simple, how to talk about the present, the real present with present continuous, and how we express routines, facts with present simple, the real present with present continuous, and also the future with present continuous. We have also studied how we can make different sentences with relative clauses to be more specific and descriptive about our sentences, right? So I think that we are ready to move on. In this new lesson, we are going to talk about the past. And in this lesson, we're going to learn about the past simple, probably more a review of what is the past simple, when we use the past simple, and the structure. We're going to use the present perfect and also how to talk about experiences and events with past tenses, past simple, and past continuous. So, when do we use the past? The past, different from simple present, the simple past or past simple, it describes or it emphasizes or indicates activities that occurred in the past, but activities that also finished in the past, right? So everything is in the past, no connection with the present. We use it to talk about finished actions, right, in the past. And we can also use it to talk about experiences in the past, but in a specific time. We are very specific with the past simple because it occurred in the past in a specific time and also stayed in the past or finished in the past. We can also use the past simple to talk about sequence of events in the past. So an activity and then another activity and then another activity immediately, right? Or consecutively. We can use the past simple to express those three ideas. So let's check some examples for the past simple. For finished actions, I went to the supermarket yesterday. My cousin bought me a nice jacket for my birthday. And I finished high school a year ago. Finished actions, all of them in the past, all of them stayed in the past, and all of them occurred at a specific time in the past and finished there. For experiences in a specific time, I traveled to the USA when I was 12, and I went on my first camping trip last month. An experience that occurred in the past, in a specific moment when I was 12, and in a specific time last month, right? And the emphasis here is in the experience and when the experience occurred in the past. Finally, number 3, sequence of events in the past. Yesterday, I woke up, took a bath, had a breakfast, and went to the gym. Right? So one activity, then another activity, then another activity. So the emphasis is that they occurred one after the other consecutively. We can use the past simple to express that idea, right? So we use the past simple for those 3 different events. Now, we know how we use the past. Now, the structure for past simple. You can see in my examples here, let me put my examples in order, that there are some verbs that look similar because of the ending. So we know that we can identify if a verb is in the past because most of the time the verb has an ending, that famous ending with ed, right? So we know that if a verb has ed or finishes with ed, or if we put ed in a verb, we converted the verb in past, right? I finished high school. I traveled to the USA when I was 12. Now, not all the verbs can have ed. We know that, right? There are other examples where the verb is different. So we remember now that there are 2 types of verbs, or we can classify verbs in 2 types. Regular verbs, the ones that follow a rule with ed, and irregular verbs, some verbs that don't follow the rule and they just transform in different things, in different words, right? So regular verbs with ed and irregular verbs that we need to basically memorize the verb. Now, in terms of regular verbs, let's try to remember how we are going to include the ed. There are some rules that probably you know, but let's just try to emphasize them and remember the regular form of past simple. So I have 4 verbs here: move, stop, marry, and play. All of them are regular. We know that we put ed, but for move, we don't need to repeat the e, we just put the d, right? For stop, stop is a verb that has 1 syllable, stop. And the order of the letters is special because we have T or ST, which those two are consonants. O is a vowel and P is a vowel. If we check the last 3 letters, we have consonant, vowel, consonant. And it's just 1 syllable. We have a rule for that. Verbs that have 1 syllable and are consonant, vowel, consonant, we need to double the P and we need to put ed. So the P is double P and then we put ed. Now, marry. How are we going to do marry? We know that if we have a verb that finishes in Y, we need to change the Y, right? And we need to put I, the normal I, right? The I that we know. And then we put ed, like that. Married. Yep, that's how we do it. So if we apply the rule, we can say that play finishes in Y. So obviously we need to change the Y and we put I. Oh, but we don't do that with play, right? With play, we don't do that. We don't change the Y. What is the reason? Well, play finishes in Y, but the previous letter is a vowel. So when the verb finishes in Y, but the previous letter is a vowel, we don't change. Marry finishes in Y, but the previous letter is a consonant, which is R. It's the same example with carry, with cry. For those verbs, they finish in Y, but the previous letter is a consonant, we change. If it's a vowel, we don't change. Just remember those rules. I know you remember them, but they are important when we are writing, especially verbs in past simple. That is for regular verbs, right? So they have their own trick. Now, irregular verbs, they completely change, and we basically have to memorize them, right? Because they are different. So for write, we have wrote. For be, we can have was or were. For go, went. For have, had. For read, we have read. Be careful. The spelling is the same. Yeah, we read the same, but the past is different pronunciation. It's red, like the color red, red. For eat, we say ate. For fall, we say fell. And for know, we say knew, right? Or knew. So that is for the past simple of irregular verbs. There are many more, of course. The important thing is that we try to practice them and memorize them. And the more we practice them, the better we are going to be able to use the verbs when we create sentences, especially in speaking, right? Because when we write, yeah, you can check a dictionary, you can check your book, you can check the internet. But when you're speaking and you're saying many sentences, you cannot be checking every sentence and every verb. So it's very useful and helpful to have the verb in our mind and practice the verb. So when we need to use the verb in real life, speaking especially, we can do it without any problem. Yep. So regular verbs, irregular verbs. Now, how can we use those structures or conjugations in a sentence? Let's start with verb to be, because verb to be is a little bit different, okay? So for verb to be, we use verb to be depending on the subject. We can use was or we can use were, right? Depending on the subject, we use one or the other. For the negative, for verb to be, we only need to include not. So for example, in affirmative, I can say, you were in the park yesterday, right? You were in the park yesterday. In negative, we say you weren't at the supermarket. You weren't at the supermarket. You were not. We only include not after was or were to create a negative. For the question, we change the position of the subject with the auxiliary and we say, were you at the park yesterday? Yeah, with your friends? Were you at the park yesterday with your friends? Was he eating an ice cream yesterday? We just change the position. That is for verb to be. Affirmative, negative, and to make some questions with verb to be in past. Now, for the other verbs, let's imagine go. For the other verbs, when we conjugate, remember that in present, when we conjugate, we change the verb depending on the subject. So, for example, he, she, Kevin, Alice, we change the verb and we say goes. We know that conjugation in present. In past, we don't have to conjugate. We just have to transform the verb into past. I mean, we conjugate in past, but that's it. So I went, you went, he went, she went, everybody went. It's the same structure that we use in past, right? For the negative, for the verbs, for go, play, read, watch, for the rest of the verbs, we need an auxiliary or a word that helps us convert the sentence in negative and in past. So we use did not, or didn't, the contraction, right? So I didn't, and check that my verb now is in the base form, in infinitive. Yeah, this is important because did is past, so I don't need to repeat the past in the verb because did is converting the sentence in past. So I didn't go to the school yesterday. Yeah, so you didn't go to the park with your brother, you went to the park with your sister, right? You didn't go. Didn't makes the sentence past and also negative. And for the question, we put did at the beginning. We use did and we say, did you study for the exam? Did Alice come to the school yesterday? Did we play together when we were kids? So we put did at the beginning, then the subject, and then the verb in base form. So, if I have a sentence like, my parents went to the beach last summer, they didn't go to Guadalajara, the negative, it's emphasizing that didn't, it's making the sentence negative and also past because go is in the base form, right? We visited an aquarium. Did we visit an aquarium? When I use a question, I put did at the beginning, and then again I put my verb in the base form because did is past and did is helping me create the sentence in a question, so I don't need to repeat the past in the verb. Yep. And I can answer my question with yes we did, no we didn't. Yep. Did your parents travel by train? Yes they did, no they didn't. Again, I can make my questions more specific, or I can make my questions ask more information by including WH questions. And I just include the WH question at the beginning, like where, what, when, how, where at the beginning. So I can say, where did your parents go? Mexico City. When did your parents go? Last summer. Why did your parents go? Because they like Mexico City. How did your parents go? They went by airplane. They went by car. Yeah. So you can include that information with what, when, where, and many other words to ask for more specific questions. So let's check if you can do it. I need your help. Let's try to convert those two sentences in negative and also in question. Yeah, he opened the door in the morning. I swam in the pool last week. You can pause the video if you want. Write it down on a piece of paper or on your notebook. Try to convert those sentences in negative. What is the negative of those sentences? What is the question form for those sentences? Pause the video, try to do it, and then you can check. So he opened the door in the morning. In negative is he didn't or he did not open the door. In question, it would be, did he open the door in the morning? For the second sentence, we say, I didn't swim in the pool last week. And the question would be, did I swim in the pool last week? If you did it correctly, perfect. If you had some problems with the structure, go back, try to remember how we put the different parts of the sentence in order, or check the examples here. So, in conclusion, we can say that yes, we use the past simple to talk about the past, but we use it to talk about activities that occurred in the past, finished in the past, and are specific in the past. Yeah. And when we create the negative and the interrogative, we use the verb in infinitive or in present, because did has already converted the sentence in past. Yeah, we use did for all the subjects, including he, she, and it. Yeah, that's something that it's important that we remember. Okay, now we know this, but I think that it's also important that we remember or we emphasize how we're going to use the past in terms of pronunciation, especially the regular verbs. Now, we know that the pronunciation of the regular verbs sometimes can be confusing. So the list that I have here, it's a list of regular verbs. All of them are regular. So we know that all of them have ed. Yeah. So the first thing that we need to do is convert those verbs in past. Can you do it? You can pause the video. You can write down your verbs, and then you can check your answer. So the answer for those verbs would be in the list next to the present. But what about reading the verbs? Can you try to read the verbs? You can pause the video and also try to read the verbs in past. So let's see how you read those verbs. Try to do it. So some students sometimes say, for example, wanted, visited, decided, which is correct, call it, offer it, clean it, kiss it, wash it, fix it, stop it. Is that how you pronounce your verbs in past? Well, that's not quite correct. Right? That's not the correct pronunciation. Some verbs, yes, but some other verbs, no. And it's important that we learn to pronounce them correctly, because we don't say call it, we don't say kiss it, we don't say stop it in English. That's not correct. And the reason is that we pronounce the ed in 3 different ways in English. We can pronounce the ed like it, yeah, like we normally mention the ed, but we can also pronounce the ed as a t or as a d sound. So the verbs that we have in color white, we pronounce them as ed, right? We say wanted, visited, and decided. Yes, we pronounce the ed. The verbs that we have in blue color, I think it's kind of blue, we pronounce them like duh, like duh. So we say called, offered, cleaned. And the last verbs that are in color orange or yellowish, we pronounce them like t. So we say kissed, washed, fixed, stopped. Yeah. And there is a rule, there is a reason why we pronounce the verbs differently. So for the first three verbs, we pronounce the ed when the verb or the syllable, the pronunciation of the last sound in the original form in present sounds like t or da. Check the three first verbs in the normal form in present. Want, visit, decide. Those verbs finish with the sound d or t. So when we create the past with ed, we pronounce the ed like id, like ed, because the original has t or d sound. So we say wanted, visited, decided. Another example would be, for example, invite. Invite, the last sound is t, invite. So the past is invited. Yeah. Present, presented. Yep. So that's how we do it. When the verb finishes in d or in t, we pronounce ed. Now, for the rest of the verbs, we need to analyze if we are using our vocal cords or not. Your vocal cords are it's like the organ or the section of your body or your throat in your neck that you use to produce sounds. Yeah. So the vocal cords vibrate when you are speaking in English, in Spanish, in any language. If you speak now in Spanish or in English and you touch your neck, your throat, you're going to feel that your throat, your neck is vibrating, is moving. Yeah. So when your throat moves or vibrates, it's using the vocal cords. This idea is important because it's going to help us understand how we're going to pronounce the rest of the verbs. Call, offer, and clean are words or verbs that have an ending or a pronunciation at the end that requires your throat or your vocal cords to vibrate. Can we try it? Can we check if this is correct? When you say call and you make the L longer at the end, call, and you touch your throat or your neck, you can feel vibration. Yeah? Call, offer, clean. There is vibration in the vocal cords. Yeah? So when there is vibration in the last sound, the pronunciation of the ed is going to be as a d, right? So we say called, offered, cleaned. That would be the correct pronunciation. So vibration, we use d. If we don't have vibration in the last syllable or in the last sound of our verb in the base form, we are going to use t. How can we check if there is no vibration? The same idea. Pronounce kiss, for example, and make the S longer. And pronounce wash, fix, stop, and make the last sound longer. And you're going to discover that your throat or your vocal cords or your neck are not vibrating at all. So you say, for example, kiss, wash, fix, stop, and there is no vibration, right? So when there is no vibration, I'm not using my vocal cords. I'm going to pronounce the ed as a t. And that is how we pronounce the ed in three different ways. I know that probably at this moment it's a bit complicated to do that. Of course, you're not going to be touching your neck every time you speak in English, but your brain is going to identify and remember this the more you practice this. This is just a tip for you to improve your pronunciation of the regular past, because I think it's important that we clarify and make it clear when we are using the past. Sometimes we're not sure and we say the verb incorrectly, so we don't understand if you are using the past or not. So check this example. A student can say, for example, I kissed my boyfriend. I kissed my boyfriend. I kissed my boyfriend. Is present or past? What do you think? I kissed my boyfriend. I kissed my boyfriend. Exactly, it can be confusing. If you're using the past, or your idea is the past, and you say, I kissed my boyfriend, it's incorrect because I'm saying the present. So it's important that you pronounce the ed correctly, and we hear if you are saying ed or ta or da. So I kissed my boyfriend. I kissed my boyfriend yesterday or last week. I kissed my boyfriend. I washed the dishes. I decided to visit my grandmother. Those sentences are in past because the ed is clear. Decided, washed, kissed, offered. So careful. Practice this and you can see that your pronunciation is going to improve. So I will be sharing more information about this, probably another video, so you can practice and study this even more. But that's it with the past simple. Remember, we have regular, irregular verbs, and we create our sentences in different ways, and we can also pronounce our verbs in regular form, in past, in different ways. So as a conclusion, we can say that the past simple, we use it to talk about actions that started and finished in the past. Normally we use expressions like yesterday, 3 weeks ago, last year, to emphasize that it's in the past. And we can also use the past simple to talk about a series of completed actions in the past, right? Thank you very much, guys. I hope this information is useful and you can also use it to study, or you can review it anytime you need it. Thank you very much and see you later.